Welcome to episode 38 of the We Are Auto Show. This is going to be a really good one. So, how are you, Mr. Derek Schmidt?
I am good. Have you heard the news that there is an emergency in space?
No.
I figured you hadn't. Anyway, I'll tell you a quick little story.
Yeah.
Russia decided it was a good idea to shoot down their own satellite. What?
Man, Russians are weird. No offense, but damn, Russians are
Why
weird.
you would do this? I don't really know. I think it was just to test like military tech that we can go shoot down satellites. But the interesting thing is, when things are going real fast in space, like a little piece of metal or a little flake of paint is a bullet. It'll rip right through a person. We're talking really big speeds. So space debris is a big problem up there. And when they did this, they created a bunch of space debris, and they also created a bunch of space debris in the orbit of the International Space Station, which has Russians on board.
Okay, that's really freaking stupid.
Really dumb.
What?
Not exactly sure why they did this. There's something called Kessler syndrome as well, that if you were to have a satellite run into another one, you create a bunch of little small pieces that then run into more satellites that create more little pieces, and then you kind of encapsulate yourself in the Earth,
It just
and you can't get out, and you're stuck.
Because you just have tons of little pieces of things orbiting around, and you can't get through it because you're just compounding the amount of like debris and crap around the planet. Yeah, that's going to put us in a really big pickle. This is stupid.
It's kind of dumb.
Russia.
So that was
Your hockey players are good, but I guess your logic.
That was some
isn't.
non-automotive news for you.
All right, so let's get into some automotive
Let's do
news
it
then, shall we? All right, so officially we have seen the actual look at the new 2023 Acura Integra.
Ooh, okay.
Okay. We have talked about the new Integra a couple of times before, and it was all just kind of speculative stuff, right? There was never anything concrete of like, here's what it looks like, here's what it's got, here's what it doesn't got. Well, we've got some official stuff now.
Okay, tell me about it.
So first and foremost, before we get into specs, let's talk about the look.
Can we not?
No, we need to. Oh, it's so bad.
It doesn't tell me it's Integra. It does not resemble anything like the old Integra.
It's so bad. It's so bad. Oh, my God. It's awful. Yeah, so you want to know what it reminds me of? All right, this is obviously just like warmed up leftovers here, but this reminds me of the Honda Accord Cross Tour from back in the day.
Gosh. Yeah.
Do you remember the Accord Cross Tour? It had that like really strangely shaped rear, and it just looked funky. It's got about the same side profile silhouette of the Accord Cross Tour. Like if you could combine the Accord Cross Tour and the new Civic hatchback, that's kind of what the new Integra looks like.
It's weird, man. What were they going after with this car?
I will tell you what they weren't going after.
Okay, what was that?
Enthusiasts.
Okay.
They tried to make it sound like it was going to go after the enthusiasts, but it definitely doesn't. Definitely does not. This is literally just Acura pandering to people that they're pandering to the vintage throwback crowd without actually doing a proper throwback. It's literally just a Civic.
Yeah, and it has no heritage of the old Integra. I don't see any.
And it doesn't look good.
No.
I mean, like it's not even like a good, like the little where the rear quarter window is behind the rear door, that whole rear section is just straight up bad. Like that whole chunk is it's just bad. Like there's nothing good, especially from the rear back. But even the front, even its face is kind of like, not really a big fan of that.
It's the Acura face. I get the face, but I don't see any old heritage here, and I don't understand why they went 4-door for an Integra, because an Integra was not supposed to be a 4-door, and then why does it have a big boot to it as well, and why does it have I don't get it.
Well, you know why? For ease of manufacturing. Because I know we talked about how this is like a Civic. Yeah. It just is a Civic. Down to literally everything. Like literally everything. So to give you some perspective as to just how much of a Civic this Civic, not Civic, Acura Integra is.
Yeah.
It has the exact same 1.5 liter turbo 4-cylinder as the Civic Si.
Ooh.
Like literally the same engine.
Really?
There's nothing different. There's nothing different. It's just a Civic Si with an Acura badge. It's got 200 horsepower, 192 pound-feet of torque. Just like the Civic Si, it comes standard with a 6-speed manual. We talked about the Civic Si, right? And how we didn't like the look so much, but we did like the fact that it only comes with a manual. We did like the fact that it was kind of cheap for what it is. This is just a Civic Si. This is just a Civic Si with Honda crossed off and Acura written
and
on.
More weight.
That's all this car is. And more weight and more money. Let's talk about money for a second. This base price is estimated about $30,000.
Really?
Wait, hold on. That means it's about $3,000 more than the Civic Si, which is the same damn
car. But it is a cheap Acura.
But it's an expensive. Wait, stop. It's an expensive Honda.
Yeah. I see where you're going.
My how the turntables have turned here, right? So it's not an Acura. I mean, it's got an Acura badge on it, but it's not an Acura. It's a Honda Civic Si for $30,000 instead of $27,000.
Okay, this is a weird car.
It is a weird car. It's about the same money as the Mark 8 Volkswagen GTI.
Really? Oh my god.
Yeah. So, in my book, if I'm looking at the Mark 8 GTI or this, I'm going Mark 8 GTI all day long. It's gotten more power. It's going to be way better handling. It looks better. It's just a better car all around, in my opinion.
Yeah, unless they just, like, perfected the interior and it's like a Bentley inside. I don't really see the appeal here.
It won't be. It's an Acura for $30,000. It won't be. It's a Civic Si for $30,000. Instead of 27.
Okay.
There's no confirmed numbers on the weight yet, but guessing it's going to be close to 3,000 pounds, which means you got 200 horsepower with 3,000
That's really
pounds.
heavy for that power. That's not going anywhere fast. Not at all.
No. I know they're planning on doing like an Integra Type S, like they had the RSX Type S. And I saw some estimated price figures for the Integra Type S. That's estimated close to $40,000.
Man.
$40,000? A swing and a miss, in my opinion. Swing and a miss.
So I guess that they just didn't go at all toward the heritage of this car.
The only thing that they did heritage-wise was use the Integra name. And the fact that it's just leftover Honda Civic parts that they couldn't figure out what to do with.
Which I guess the old Integra was kind of that, but...
I mean, I know Thanksgiving is coming up next week, and for all of our listeners, we're all going to wake up on Friday morning in the U.S. here, and we're going to go, let's make breakfast. Okay, I got some stuffing, I got some turkey, I got some mashed potatoes, I got some eggs in the fridge. Let's make this, like, turkey, potato, egg scramble for breakfast. And voila, we have the new Acura Integra. There it is. Boom.
Honda just
it's the day
blended everything up into this hatchbacky four-door thing.
In a yellow that's not very good.
And badged it Integra.
Yeah.
No,
not like that.
Not the biggest
Don't
fan
like
either.
Yeah. The internet has all agreed with us too. So everyone on the internet has all pretty much written and read the same thing of, what the hell are you doing, Acura? Don't do this.
Yeah, you can't even really... I couldn't even see this car being raced anywhere either. I don't know. Like,
No. There's nothing about this car that appeals to me. Like, literally, normally I can find, like, one factor that I'm like, oh, yeah, I can kind of make sense of that. There is literally nothing about this car that I'm like, okay, yeah, that's not horrible. The only thing I could maybe say is that it's got a manual transmission.
does it?
But it still only has...
Okay.
Yeah. but it still only has 200
Yeah,
horsepower.
no.
And a 1.5 liter. It just.
My BRZ has 200 horsepower. It's slow. And then take off 1,000 pounds. Oh God, what? Like, or add 1,000 pounds? It'd be super. That's dumb.
Yeah, it'd be horrible. So that's my take on the new.
All right, yeah. I'm kind of with you. I'm not. There isn't much to like here. Maybe a manual. The front looks like an Acura TL to me. And meh.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like.
That's the best description.
Meh.
Meh. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's just meh.
All right. Is there anything else that's not meh?
There is actually something that's very not meh. It's very exciting and spicy, and a car that I would love to get my sweaty little paws all over.
Oh boy.
So this is another car that we had briefly talked about way back when, with some speculative figures, when this car lapped the Nürburgring much faster than its non-super crazy hard fast version. Now this is the new 2022 Porsche 718 Cayman GT4 RS. Woo!
That's a lot to say.
Let's go. So, we talked about this a while ago when Porsche teased the GT4 RS and announced that they were actually making it instead of just speculations. When the GT4 RS went around the Nürburgring about 23 seconds faster than the current GT4. And that was mind-blowing to all of us because, like, oh, damn, that's a big number to go faster than. That's not like 2 seconds. That's 20-plus seconds. So it was unveiled officially at the LA Auto Show. Now, this is bittersweet for me. Here's why. Porsche has had some rumors that the 718, so the Cayman, or Boxster, is going electric.
Oh, really?
I am hoping that this isn't the swan song, the end of eternity for the petrol NA flat six Cayman.
This could
GT4.
be the swan song for it. I think it is too.
Either way, it looks.
It does look good.
It looks fantastic. Oh God, it's great. It uses the same 4-liter flat six as the GT3, so you got just shy of 500 horsepower, about 493 horsepower, 331 pound-feet of torque, with PDK only. So this is a non-manual transmission car. They will not make this car in a manual, but I'm okay with that because the GT4 is manual. The GT4 RS is PDK only. Porsche themselves have come out and said they will never make another RS version of a car as a manual. It's only a PDK, simply because it is just chasing lap times. The whole point of this car is lap times. If you want driver experience and driver feedback, then you're going to buy either a regular GT4 or a regular GT3 for the manual. That's not what this car is designed for. This car is literally designed for just peeling back your eyes while you're going through corners. It's just designed to blow your brain. So that is putting this car 0 to 60 in about 3.2 seconds, which is quick, right? It looks almost exactly like the GT4 Club Sport that races in the Pilot Challenge.
It really does.
Like the GT4.
It really does.
You know why? Because it pretty much just is that car. It's pretty much just that like Cayman GT4 Club Sport that races like the Pilot Challenge with number plates.
Like, could I take this to an IMSA event and nearly get it sanctioned? Oh,
almost.
Man.
You're like, I think you are a few degrees of separation from being able to actually properly run this in Pilot Challenge. Like you're maybe like 1 weekend worth of swapping out some seats or some safety features for making and maybe detuning it a little bit and making it actually eligible to run like GT4 stuff. So it's got 196 mile an hour top speed, so it's quick, but it's not a top speed car. This is a corners car. It is mid-engined, unlike the 911 GT3, which is rear-engined.
Okay.
It's got a curb weight of about 3,200 pounds, which is about 40 pounds less than the current GT4. But if you option this car with the optional Weissach package, then that gives you it lets you shave another 40 pounds off with a bunch of extra carbon bits, carbon hood, carbon roof, carbon all this, carbon, which who's not going to opt for the Weissach package? I mean, come on.
Yeah,
Come on.
from Porsche enthusiasts I've talked about, that is the way to go.
Yeah, so total, once you really kind of get things all done, if you get the Weissach package, you're about 80 pounds less than the current GT4, which you will feel that for sure.
Yep.
So that puts this car about 3,200 pounds, just shy of 3,200 pounds when you've got the Weissach package, which means this car with almost 500 horsepower weighs about the same as the Acura Integra.
That's what I was about to say. Oh.
So just by looking at this car, what do you think about this new GT4 RS?
It's a race car. It's a track built race car. Looks great. Probably drives fantastic on the racetrack. I get why they put the PDK in it as opposed to the manual. Still irks me a little deep down inside, but I understand it. And I hope I'm with you. I hope it's not the swan song, but I really get the vibe this is the swan song.
I do too, which scares me, but it is what it is. A little bit more on this GT4 RS. With all of the upgraded aero and stuff that's on this car, it's like I was telling you, it's pretty much the Club Sport just for the road. It pretty much is the Club Sport just for the road. It's got pretty well the same swan neck wing on the rear that the Club Sport has. Now that swan neck wing provides an extra 25% more downforce than the current GT4. That's a lot. That's a lot of downforce. So that's going to be part of why this car turns such quick lap times. Is it's got a lot of aero magic wizardry happening that really get this thing rocking and rolling. Now, one of my absolute favorite parts of this car. Can you guess which, like, taking a look at the pictures, if you don't have an eagle eye, you probably won't spot it. But there's one thing about this car that just gives me this, like, ooh, that's really cool kind of a vibe.
Well, you just talked about the swan neck, so it's not that. But I do notice behind...
That was one of them, but it's not
behind the driver's window, is that an air intake?
It is. Oh, it's so cool. So this car, I'm telling you, it is literally like the Club Sport race car with number plates. It's got the carbon fiber rear quarter windows, or the rear quarter windows are replaced with a carbon fiber intake. I love that. That is so cool. Because it's obviously that big 4-liter flat six needs a lot more air to be gulping to it than just what the side vents can give it. So it's got those windows like what you see in a race car. That screams race car to me.
I'm a fan of when they do that. And I think it's also a decent use of space there.
Yeah. Especially since this is mid-engine. So this just goes straight in. Now, another thing that I will say that I'm a huge fan of, the wheels.
What about them?
I love them.
The rims, the wheels, just everything.
I love them so much. So they are. You can either opt for the forged aluminum wheels, or the ones that we see on the picture are magnesium.
Oh boy!
Wheels. So they're super lightweight, and they're blue. Who like? That is so cool. A car manufacturer is giving people blue freaking wheels. Hell
You're
yes.
such a little kid in a candy store right now.
Dude, I want blue wheels. It's so cool. You can have blue wheels on your car with a big carbon fiber intake vent and a big swan neck wing. It's
with
so
that
cool.
gray, the blue looks very good. I don't know if it would work for all colors, but looks good.
I bet you it would work really good on
white,
it would too. Yeah, and that is, I believe that's called Arctic Gray. And I already know the stupid name of the color. It's just kill me now. Just kill me now. A little bit more on this GT4 RS. I know I'm trying not to drown on, but I probably am. It does come equipped standard with either Dunlop Sport Maxes or Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2s. But here's the part that I really love. Porsche will let you option this with Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2R tires. So they're pretty much letting you buy this car specifically for the track. They're letting you buy it from Porsche with pretty much track day tires.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. It's mental. That's the whole point.
That's what this car's built to do. It's built to go around racetracks. So I think it's a great idea for them to just almost give you a slick right out of the bat. Just go.
Yeah. It is pretty much a slick with like 2 grooves, and that's it. So now let's get into some price.
It's got to be pricey.
Because this is where we got to have a discussion. So the GT4 RS, the 718 GT4 RS, is coming in starting at $143 and change.
Starting?
Now that's
starting
at, which means by the time you get the magnesium wheels, you're probably $150. By the time you get carbon ceramic brakes, you're probably $160. And by the time you get all the extra stuff that you want, you're probably $170. And by the time you actually go to get it and you get the allocation, the dealer's going to add another $50,000. You're about probably $200,000 is my guess.
200. The
ish is my guess. So for the money, I mean, it starts out, your base price is $19,000 less than the current 992 GT3, the 911, the proper, right?
Okay.
If you're spending, let's call it between $150,000 to $200,000, what would you rather have, a 992 GT3 or the 718 GT4 RS? Now, as a reminder, let me give you the backstory on both. As a reminder, the GT4 RS is mid-engined, PDK only, and has got a lot more kind of track day only stuff. The 992 GT3 is a 911, so it is rear-engined. It is they've both got pretty well the exact same engine, 4-liter flat 6, but the GT3 is available in a manual.
Is that even a question?
What do you buy?
I
don't think so, but I think I know. All right. See, and that's where I love the PDK transmission. It is bonkers. It's incredible. It shifts harder and faster and better than any transmission in the world. But if I'm spending the same money, here's the way my Porsche brain looks at this. They are both incredible cars. They're both great. But one of them's a 911.
Yeah. If I had an IMSA team, sure, I'd buy the 718 because it's 2 steps away from being a race car. But if I didn't have an IMSA team, which I don't, why would I get this car? Unless you're just going to track the crap out of it, that's about the only reason you would get this, right?
Yeah, if you're taking it to the track every weekend, you buy this car. So for me, I personally would get a 992 GT3 with a manual.
Yeah, the crazy part is the price is almost identical. I mean, it's not far off.
Yeah, you're not far. Technically, it is $19,000 less than the 992 GT3, but you know damn well that by the time you option things, you're close to the same money.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically directly on the same money.
Yeah. So that's my tidbit about the 718 Cayman GT4 RS.
An interesting car. Looks like a very fun, fast race car, but it seems a bit priced. It's like 10 to 20 grand priced too high, in my opinion.
I don't think it's priced too high. I think they're going to sell an absolute metric shit ton of them. But it's not a manual.
No.
So
but it's not designed to be either. So
exactly, it's designed for lap times.
Yes.
So that's pretty much it. So let's get out of the new news and let's get into some racing.
All right,
news,
let's do it,
shall we? There was a major race that I know I watched at least about the last half of it, and it's maybe one of our favorite races of the year. It's up there, probably top 3 in my opinion. What race?
Little Le Mans,
Mr.
Petit Le Mans. I watched about the first third,
yes.
So I am very curious to know what happened at the end here. This race.
All right. So how about this? Yeah, how about this? You fill me in on the first third. I'll fill you in the last half.
This race was the final race of the season for IMSA, happening at Road Atlanta, which is a track that I actually have been to. I have seen this race with my own 2 eyes. Fantastic race. Starts in the morning. I think it starts around like 10 a.m., and then it goes into the nighttime, which is very similar to how the Sebring 12 hours works. I believe it's a 10-hour race. It used to be 10 hours or 1,000 miles or kilometers. I don't remember. Whichever one hit first, which was actually kind of cool in my opinion, because you didn't actually know how long the race was going to be until near the end. And it was a unique way to put an end to a race. But they've just turned it into a 10-hour race for TV time now. Race started fairly clean. I didn't see too many major incidents in the first, I believe it was the third half of the race. But I know that there was a huge incident with a Corvette and a big Constantina effect that happened with a bunch of other GT cars.
Yeah, it was massive. And it was honestly scary to watch. Have you seen the highlights of it?
I did see that incident, and it was scary. I saw the onboard as well, and it was real scary.
Yeah, so there was a big crash where Jordan Taylor in the, what was it, the number 4 or the number 3 Corvette, one of the Corvettes, came up and crest one of the hills. And as soon as he crested the hill, there was just everyone dead stopped. And he piles into like an 8-car pile up. There's nowhere for him to go. I mean, he was absolutely hemmed in. This was a huge impact. This looked downright scary from the in-car and from
what I saw, he was going around like 120 or something like that when he impacted the car in front of him. And he came to almost a dead stop.
Yeah, that was big. That was really big. So yeah, that was, I guess, the biggest and the first real incident of the race.
Yeah, I think that was probably the biggest incident of the race and one of the first incidents of the race.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So let me give you a little kind of rundown of the race at the end of the race, because there were races within the race within the races at the end of the race.
That's what we love,
right? So yeah, really, honestly, this was a hell of a race to watch. So this year, Petit Le Mans, I believe, fell later than it normally does, right? So normally Petit Le Mans happens before the clocks fall back and all the daylight savings time stuff happens, right? So this year we got an extra hour of nighttime racing, which we know that when the sun goes down, the racing heats up, right? So when the sun goes down, not only does the racing heat up, the temperatures drop down.
Yep.
Which means this was, I remember hearing the commentators saying that in Formula One or many of the other series they legally, or not legally, but they would not let them race because the tires, their new tires that are sitting in the pits, would not be warm enough because IMSA does not allow you to use tire warmers, FYI. Right? So people are getting tires put on, and they're literally just driving around.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, tire warmers are like literally giant thermal blankets that are like 200 degrees, and they wrap them around the tires in F1 and in the WEC. I believe they also heat up the tires. And it makes it so the tires, when they go on the car, are already 200 to 300 degrees, and they're like really malleable and grippy. In IMSA, where they were, it was like 40 degrees Fahrenheit outside, and the tires were 40 degrees, which is not ready to go through a corner.
Which means every single car coming, especially DPI, coming out of pit with new tires, especially at night, they were skating. I mean, I saw 3 DPIs, I think, in a row come out of pit and go bouncing over the grass immediately because they went to turn and just nothing happened. There's just nothing happened. I just whoop, right over. So let me give you a little synopsis here. We'll start with GTLM because this is maybe one of our favorite classes and the class that is now dead after this race. So it's been assassinated. So very sad to hear GTLM is no more. So at the end of the race, there was some more Corvette drama. So there was Corvette drama about halfway through the race, but there's also Corvette drama at the end. So there was a battle, Porsche, Corvette. That's, the classic battle, the GT classic battle, right? In the final stages, there was also a battle, a DPI battle. Now, within the DPI battle, the DPI battle ran up to the GT battle, right? So now you got a battle going on within a battle. Now, a Corvette was on podium, past tense. because going into one of the corners, there's a little bit of contact made between the number 55 Mazda DPI and that last running Corvette.
Oh.
Because DPI was in a battle, GTLM were in a battle, right? They're both battling in the same corner, right? So the Corvette gets punted a little bit of contact. They go off a little bit, and whatever happened, Corvette actually had to retire the car.
Oh, really?
There was some sort of, and this had to be within the last, 15 to 30 minutes of the race. I mean, this was the closing stage of the race. So there must have been some sort of broken suspension, something that they are not getting fixed in 10 or 15 minutes, right? So Corvette, see you later, which for Porsche fans like myself led to a very good-looking podium.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. We had a WeatherTech and a WeatherTech. So WeatherTech brought out 2 Porsches for the last race of GTLM, which is also pretty much the last race of the 911 the RSR, the car that I have a love affair with. It makes a screaming noise that actually hurts people, and I love that. But the RSR is pretty much dead after this race with GTLM. But the RSRs on their last race ever got 1 too. So, you know what? The Corvettes are going to be around for a while. They can deal with not winning this race. They're fine. They won the championship anyway. All they had to do was start the race. They're fine. Right?
Question then.
But
if they were 1-2,
answer.
Who was third on the podium because the 2 Corvettes wrecked?
BMW.
Oh, they were running. Ah, okay.
Yeah, BMW was there. In the stupid M8.
The big boy.
Either way, doesn't matter. Yeah, the big boy M8. Right? Yeah, so it was a WeatherTech 1-2 Porsche RSR in their final race. The RSRs got 1 and 2, which I'm happy to see. Super excited about that. But Corvette's going to take the championship just based upon the fact that they had so many points.
Okay.
So that was the GTLM battle. Now let me talk about the DPI battle, because this was quite a battle to watch. Pretty well a 3-way battle between the number 55 Mazda, the number 10 Acura, and the number 31 Cadillac. So going through this race, there were because of how tires were super sketchy coming out of pits, some people were opting to only put rears on or only put fronts on, right? So they were doing these weird tire tactics. And that may have paid off for some, it may have not paid off for others. So I believe the number 55 Mazda on their last pit took all 4 new tires, and I believe the number 10 Acura only took, I can't remember, either fronts or rears. Okay. But that meant the Mazda was slower coming out of pit, but also had fresher tires at the end of the race, right? So this is also the last race of that Mazda Motorsport, that Multimatic Mazda Motorsport DPI. So it's done. Mazda's not running, hypercar.
Sad.
So if Mazda wins the race, they win their last race. If Acura wins, then they take the championship anyway.
This is the end of all the DPIs, though, correct?
Correct, but they're doing kind of pretty much slight changes with the DPIs for the hypercar. Okay. It's going to be similar, right? So with that being said, going around, there was a big battle happening in literally the last lap of the last corner of the last corner of the last lap of the last race of the season. So let me paint the picture for you. The number 55 Mazda was in the lead by a hair. The number 10 Acura, driven by Ricky Taylor, was shortly behind him, followed by the number 31, that was the Whelen Engineering Cadillac.
Okay.
So painting the picture, painting the scenes for you, if the number 10 Acura came before the number 31 Cadillac, then the Acura wins the championship. If the Cadillac comes before the Acura, then the Cadillac wins the championship. Now, the Mazda's not in contention for the championship. This is just their last race ever. Their points, they weren't going to make the championship, right? But they wanted to win the last race with the Mazda team. Who doesn't, right? So Harry Tinknell. So going into it was like the second to last corner of the last lap of the last race of the season. Ricky Taylor had to make a last-ditch effort. I mean, this was like, if I don't go for a pass now, it's done. I'm not winning this race. It's done. So he goes to dive deep into the corner, narrowly missing Harry Tinknell. And then he gets kind of shunted off and goes bouncing off track, which meant that the Mazda pulled ahead. So the Mazda took the checkered. And here's where it gets spicy. It was just enough bouncing off track for the 31 Cadillac.
Oh, so they did lose the championship there.
So they lost the championship.
Ooh.
In the last corner of the last race of the entire season, the championship was lost. Boy, was that exciting to watch. Whoa.
That's actually the perfect finish that I wanted, because before this race I had said I just don't want an Acura to win, and an Acura didn't win, and then an Acura didn't win the championship.
Yeah. Oh, that was watching that was freaking spicy and exciting as hell. Oh my God, that was so exciting to watch. So yeah, that was DPI. And then GTD, the GT Daytona, was another great race to watch. I didn't really pay much attention to the LMP2 and LMP3s.
Right.
But the GTD was another great race. There was a battle between the number 23 Heart of Racing Aston and the number 9 PAF Porsche. That was still just an ongoing battle the whole race. Right, they were jockeying for position with different pits. Someone would go ahead, then the next, then the next, then the next. So after all that, the number 23 Heart of Racing Aston does take the W at Road Atlanta for the Petit Le Mans over the number 9 PAF Porsche. So here's the thing. With these results, with the number 23 Heart of Racing Aston taking the win, that does not give them enough championship points to beat the number 9 PAF Porsche in the championship. So even taking second with the Porsche gives them the championship.
Really? The PAF Porsche
Yep.
gets the championship win.
Yep.
Well, there will be lots of plaid worn.
Yeah. Yes, there will. There will be lots of plaid. So let me give you just a quick rundown on the overall winners of each class at the Motul Petit Le Mans. The DPI winner was the number 55 Mazda Motorsports, driven by Harry Tinknell, Jonathan Bomarito, and Oliver Jarvis. LMP2, that went to the number 18 Era Motorsport Orica, driven by Kyle Tilley, Ryan Dalziel, and Dwight Merriman. The LMP3 class was taken by the number 38 Performance Tech Motorsports Ligier, driven by Malte Jacobson, Dan Goldberg, and Rasmuth Lind. And the GTLM winner, which my favorite, was the number 79 WeatherTech Racing Porsche RSR, driven by Matt Campbell, Cooper McNeil, and Matthew Gemini. The GTD winner went to the number 23 Heart of Racing Aston Martin Vantage GT3, driven by Gunn, Roman DeAngelis, and Ian James.
Okay.
So that is the winners of the Petit Le Mans. Now, let me take that one step further. Because that was the last race of the season, let me give you the championship results. Who are the official champions of the entire season? So in terms of points, in DPI, that went to the number 31 Wheel and Engineering Cadillac, by Felipe Nazar and Pippo
on
Durrani.
the last lap in the last corner.
Yep. The literally the last corner of the last lap of the last race.
Yes.
Love that. LMP2, the championship went to the number 52 PR1 Matheson Motorsports, driven by Ben Keating and Mikkel Jensen. Love that. That's the Wins livery.
That is a good livery.
That's a great looking car. LMP3, the championship went to the number 74 Riley Motorsports, driven by Gar Robinson. In GTLM, the championship went to the number 3 Corvette Racing with Antonio Garcia and Jordan Taylor. All they had to do was literally just start the race, and they won. In GTD, the winner was the number 9 PAF Porsche, driven by Zachary Robichon, Lawrence Ventor, and Lars Kern. Yeah. Woo!
A good season from a good series, and awesome to see the top step of the top class go down to the final hour or the final lap of the final turn. That's exactly what you want to see in this kind of series. And I'm glad to hear that there was a lot of shenanigans that happened between classes, because that's exactly what this series sets up to entertain the crowd with, and I love to see that happen.
Exactly. So that's the Petit Le Mans of the 2021 IMSA season. One more quick thing I want to mention. There was a Formula One race I didn't watch it. We already know it's a Mercedes and Red Bull bash. There was a big controversy between Verstappen and Hamilton. I don't really care about it. Didn't watch it because I was too busy focusing on Petit Le Mans, where we had actual good racing with people passing. So,
I believe that they are going into the last 3 races of the season here, and there's a race this weekend, and they are like locked in points within like 12 points or something very close. So, should come down to the wire, just like the IMSA season did.
Yeah, I hope that gets more exciting as the days go by. So, I guess that'll wrap us up for the racing news. So, now it is my absolute privilege, and I am so excited to introduce our guest for today. Our guest is Gino Manly. He is a race driver. He races the IMSA Pilot Challenge with a TCR car with AOA Racing. So now here's the interview with Gino. We have the absolute privilege and honor of sitting with Gino Manly of AOA Racing. Welcome to the show, Gino.
Awesome, guys. I'm happy to be here. I'm a big fan of the podcast.
Thanks, man. We're a big fan of you and the grassroots IMSA racing and just competition that you've got getting out there in that Audi and all the other fun stuff that I've seen you out there, and especially a Crown Vic. But we'll get more into that later. So to start out with, really just basic. How did you get into cars back in the day?
Yeah, so kind of growing up as a kid, my dad is in still is in the kind of the retail automotive industry. So that kind of transferred on to me. So as a day job, I'm still at the office right now. I run a Volkswagen store here in Florida, so that kind of pays for the bills. So that's kind of my day job. But growing up, he was driving home different cars every day, buying a bunch of different cars. So started kind of getting into that and enjoying the cars for what they were, and then that just transitioned to myself getting into this as a career. And an offshoot of that was if you're a car guy and you like cars, the jump to getting into racing isn't that hard of a jump. So kind of just started as a kid, and cars pay the bills as a career, and then my fun that I spend the money on is playing with cars during the weekends. So.
Gotta love it. So you're at a Volkswagen dealer right now. So does that mean you like Volkswagen at all?
So, I'm lucky. I've been at the same organization for 10 years. So, yeah, we're a Volkswagen, Mazda, BMW franchise in Jacksonville. So, coincidentally, it was until I was racing the Audi, I had always raced one of our brands just by happenstance. But I know I'm around cool cars all day long. So, but yeah, to answer your question, I'm a big VW fan, and anything we sell, I'm a fan of. So, all
right. So here's a question for you, Volkswagen related, because I'm a Volkswagen nut myself. All right, the Mark 8 GTI thoughts.
I think when Mark 7 came out, it was such a big jump performance-wise over the previous generations. I don't know if it's going to have that same jump, but I'm not really a fan of the design culture that Volkswagen's been going. We were always real. 3-box stoic, sedans. Then now we're mostly SUVs and electric cars. So I hope the Mark 8 is not really the swan song for the GTI, because it's not going to be long before everything's electric. But I'm a fan, not as much as design-wise, but I think the technology they're coming out with in that car is going to be pretty spectacular. So.
That's fair. So what do you drive personally? Like, what's the daily driver? What's the fun car? What's in the garage for you, Gino?
So there and again, too, being in the industry I'm in, that's a big issue. So I've probably owned 40 or 50 cars, and so I own way too many cars right now. So
is that such a thing, though? Is it really such a thing as too many?
It really is when you start running out of places to park and when you forget what you own. So that's the real issue. So currently right now, just from the hip, I have an E46 ZHP.
A ZHP. So that's the 330i with some extra goodies, right?
Yeah, it was basically the 4-door M3 because there was never an E46 M3. So it was like you had to have been an enthusiast to order one of those. So
I remember those ZHPs, and I always was like, I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's not quite as sharp as an M3, but I've got a cool one. Whoever ordered mine ordered it right. It's a 4-door sunroof delete. Alcantara car. So
Ooh.
yeah, that's one of the toys. Have a Mazda 2 track car, an NB, an
Okay.
F250 to tow everything with. I think I have a S197 Mustang for some reason. I know I'm forgetting 4 or 5 different cars, but yeah, there's quite a few things kind of in the garage right now. So
So, of the current cars in the stable, what are the favorites? What are the ones that you just go, yeah, I'm so excited to drive this today?
really, none of them. So that the problem is
Ooh.
kind of when you. I've been super fortunate in life that I've gotten to drive some of the most incredible cars that there are.
Okay.
And what happens is when you drive race cars so often, street cars. And it's gonna make me sound old, but like I just want to drive something that's comfortable. So I mean, I get into like when I get into the E46, it's cool. I mean, it's a great driver's car, fantastic platform, but it's like, man, I really don't want to bend down the end of this car. And it's like this thing's riding really rough. So weird. I'm kind of at that point in life where it's like I want some like. I mean, I'd love to have a new Tahoe right now, just because there's something just nice and comfortable that you can drive in. Because I've been so desensitized to kind of performance cars, just from what I do on the weekends. So.
That's fair. That does make a lot of logical sense. I'll give you that. Now, you did mention that you've driven a lot of really incredible cars. What are some of like the top 3, top 5 cars that you've driven that you're like, whoa, this was nuts?
Yeah, I don't even know how a lot of this happened. A couple years ago, I drove a Ginetta G57, the LMP3 car. That some
Wait,
guy was just like, "Hey,
what?
take this out." Yeah, so
Oh,
that's
damn.
not uncommon. Yeah, obviously the TCR car. It's kind of. I mean, I drive it so much now. Originally, when I drove it, I never thought I'd be able to get to drive a car like that. Um, I've driven the M4 GT4. That's a fantastic car.
Mm-hmm.
We had M2 for a little bit. So yeah, I mean, I've driven a bunch of race cars, exotic cars, but yeah, the Ginetta was pretty hard to beat. And obviously the Audi, that still has some cool factor every time you get into it. So.
That's fair. That's fair. Do you have a favorite like manufacturer? Like, do you have like a home base favorite manufacturer? Like for me, I'm always pulling for Porsche. I don't care what they're racing. I'm going to be a Porsche diehard until I die.
Yeah, I mean, for me, honestly, it's the Mazdas. Again, I've been
Yes.
around Miatas and I've owned several of them. And even to this day, there's no manufacturer in the world. I'm pretty involved in racing that I think supports kind of the grassroots that Mazda does. Every manufacturer is in racing. You can look at BMWs and everything like that, but I mean, you look at Mazda here they just want Petit Le Mans, but
Mm-hmm.
they're not as big of a company, so they say, hey, we're going to put our money in MX5 Cup and spec MX5, and I mean, that doesn't really help them sell cars. I mean, I don't care what anyone says. I mean, I can't imagine that's really helping them, like, having a car in the big stage, but they support racing that much that's where they're going to put their money. So, yeah, I'll forever always own a Mazda. And again, I'm a big fan of the street product, but more so what they do for racers is there's no other company like it. So.
I can dig that for sure. I really love just how Mazda exactly like you said. They're supporting the grassroots guys, the guys that are wrenching in their garage that say, you know what, I'm going to go take my little Miata and I'm going to go hurl it around Sebring and hope I don't die at 80 horsepower.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the cool thing about Mazda, I've dealt with some of these guys in motorsports, and I mean they're there, they're at the SCC events. They're watching this stuff, where something like a BMW or an Audi, unless it's the 24 hours of Le Mans, they don't really care what's going on. Whereas Mazda actually cares about what these guys are doing with their Miatas, and you can see, I mean, with Spec MX5 here, they're making a whole series for 10-year-old Miatas basically. And I mean, why? I mean, just because they support it. So, no, for the grassroots racers, for autocrossers, even. I mean, that's the brand that's always had our back. So I'm all for it. So.
That's great. That Spec MX5 series is probably my favorite series to watch right now, even over the big dogs in IMSA. Like the battling that goes on in that is just amazing. And you were at Petit Le Mans this past weekend. How was your weekend?
Yeah, so so I raced with a team called AOA Racing, and I don't even know why we own this car, but a couple years ago we bought an RS3 TCR to go do WRL with, and the owner was like, "Hey, we have this Audi, we could probably go race IMSA with it," and everyone's like, "Yeah, haha." Well, sure enough, somehow we raised enough money to do one race, and now we've done a handful of these. So we did the bookends this year. We did Daytona, the Pilot Challenge race, and then we just did Petit Le Mans, the Pilot Challenge race there. And yeah, so I mean, give you guys a little back. I mean, obviously, I'm not independently wealthy to be able to go afford this, so we crowdfunded a lot of money from local businesses, myself, and the track day organizations that I'm with. We have a lot of the guys there, and my teammate was a kind of an Atlanta local named Patrick Wilmot. So we strapped together, a super small budget to do this. We entered the Audi, and we ended up. Long story short, we ended up finishing P8 in the TCR class in the Pilot Challenge race. But I mean, along the way, we lost the gearbox. We had to figure out how to change this. We didn't have enough money to buy the gearbox. The sponsor stepped up, so. Huge success. I mean, just a wild story that we're able to do some of the races that we've done. But yeah, to be able to do it at the home track. And for me, I've done a handful of these already, and this was the first like non-COVID IMSA race. So, we got to meet with the fans, and it was, I mean, again, I hate to use the term like we're living the dream, but it was pretty special to be out there on the fan walk and to not be a fan, to actually say like I'm driving that car. It was pretty special. So.
Wow, that's awesome. That is super cool to hear that you're out there driving those race cars. What's the TCR like to drive, the front wheel drive Audi? That's got to be interesting.
Yeah, it took a long time for me to get comfortable with. I mean, those that aren't familiar, a TCR car is basically, an American touring car, front wheel drive, 4-cylinder turbocharged cars. You can either get them as sequentials or dual clutches. Surprisingly, an Audi TCR car is like 80% GTI. Same baseline motor, pretty much the same DSG transmission. I mean, most of that mechanical stuff. I mean, we pulled the motor. I was like, well, damn, that's a GTI motor I'm looking at. And so, obviously it's hopped up in tune. There's some internal differences. But yeah, they're 80% GTI. So, at 810s, they drive a lot like a GTI on track. When you really start to push them, the aero starts to come in, and then they drive a little more different depending on how serious you're pushing these cars. But, I mean, if you put a regular, person in these cars, it would drive more or less like a GTI until you really started having to lean to the aero. So.
That's pretty wild. So that makes me feel like the next time I go for a drive in my Volkswagen, I'm driving an Audi TCR car. I'm going to keep that in mind. The next time on a back road.
You wouldn't be far off. No, you really wouldn't. I mean, again, people look at TCR cars and, again, and I have to look. I mean, a place like Sebring, I think they're doing like 19s or, time-wise. And these cars only have 320 horsepower. It's not like we're out there, in GT3 cars. So when you see a TCR car put down a lap time, that's mostly all just, aero and stick and momentum trying to make it work. So.
That's cool. That's really cool. What was the best finish? What was the worst finish? How was the season or the handful of races you did with IMSA in that TCR car?
Yeah, I mean, going back last year, our first race ever was this race last year. Going into Petit, I thought I was ready to drive those cars at that level. I absolutely wasn't. I ended up actually crashing us out, ran into another car. So like I thought, yeah, I mean, we raised all this money, we made a big, fuss about it, and then I will say happily we're like race for position. My biggest fear is we would do this and like you'd see the pack go by and like 2 seconds later you say, hey, there goes Gino, go by. But we were race for position. I made a bad pass in hindsight. Kind of collected another car, and it was just not a good story. And so I thought the owner would be like, yeah, you're done. You're never driving this car again. But immediately he was like, hey, listen, let's regroup here. Let's do another race. And so we did Sebring last year. Ended up finishing 7th, which was pretty strong. Made a comeback, on that. And then we did the bookends this year. So I grew up in Florida. So like my dream since I was a kid going like the Daytona 500 was to race the Daytona, like professionally one day. And this actually happened. So we barely raised enough money to do this. And we went down. We all stayed like in one hotel room. We towed the car down with a dually and a trailer, and we did the BMW Endurance Challenge, which is like a 4-hour pro race. And we finished 7th there, but I started the car, and like we were really good. I drove the car up to 4th, which was just it was pretty special. I mean, Daytona this year. That's something I'll never forget, actually growing up there and watching races there. So we did that, and then obviously we did Petit just last weekend. But yeah, again, we'll do the majority of what we do is grassroots stuff. We run the whole season WRL and kind of everything in between. But with this car, as we can, and as we can get funding to go along, we're going to do some of this IMSA stuff. And yeah, it's probably one of the hardest things. I don't think people realize the level of driving. Again, everyone thinks they can do it, including me, and then you're actually out there, and it was eye opening. It's taken me all these races now to where I finally feel comfortable, like I kind of belong out there. But the initial shock, yeah, these guys are really good, and again, people think that because they're fast, in Champ Car or W like I did, that you can go out there and cut it, and the answer is probably not. So
I see, that's a good perspective that I didn't quite realize, because you kind of think, yeah, if you're P1 in WRL or SCCA, then you got to be pretty competitive in IMSA. But you're saying it's a whole nother ball game when you're at that level.
So here's what I'll say. Like we've run WRL for years. We were the overall champions. So I mean, I'm a comfortable enough amateur that I can say, yeah, if you put me in a good car in WRL, I can probably get us to the front in whatever class we're in. Like, I'm not trying to sound cocky, but I've done enough and I'm experienced to do it. When you go to WRL or go to IMSA, everybody's fast. And so like I'm pretty quick. I can put down a quick lap time. That's not nearly enough. The racecraft that these guys have, how quickly they think. And so I can remember, like the best performance I've had is probably this year at Daytona when we're going to the top of the field. And you hear him talk about on TV, and a lot of times you think he's an announcer just sound, hey, it takes 2 laps to set up a pass. No, it really does. And the racecraft that these guys have at that level, and in particular in Pilot Challenge, it's a really tough series because it's multi-class. You got GS guys out there. You got Dr. So-and-so who has no idea what he's doing in this R8, holding up traffic. And unfortunately, I'm in TCR, and TCR is like filled with kids that, I mean, you've got these super kids that have, unlimited funds. They've been trained and grown up to do this. And then you got also really good guys that just haven't been able to get a WeatherTech ride yet. And so you're in this class with this outrageous talent, and we're out here in an old car, and I'm like, man, what are we even doing out here for a little bit? So, yeah, it's I will say that again, a lot of guys think they can go out there and cut it. Myself included. And, again, right now, I'm finally comfortable in some of these races. But, again, it's not enough to be fast. Everyone thinks, I can go run X lap time in this car, or I can run a CCA. That's all great. But when you're actually out there and the racecraft these guys have, and the communication they have with the teams, they know the strategy sometimes before the crew does. These guys are good. So, I mean, anytime you get into this level of racing, whether it's Pilot Challenge or WeatherTech or SRO, there's a different mindset. Again, it's not lap times. It's not just about lap times, because anyone can be. I mean, a lot of amateurs are all very, very quick, But when they go out there and it comes time to make passes, it gets a lot more serious. So.
Gotcha. So Gino, you're in like the one step below the IMSA pro level. Is the dream to go pro in IMSA, and is the dream to go have a Le Mans drive or have a Nürburgring drive or something like that?
So, I'm kind of unique, and so I will never consider myself to be a pro driver or even want to be a pro driver. That's almost, in my mind, doing this long, that's almost disrespectful to the actual pro drivers that do this for a living. So my goal would be to be fast enough that I could participate in something like a WeatherTech race, and not be the slowest guy out there, and at least try to give them a run for them. I think that's the dream where, again, it's very unrealistic, for someone like myself to say, hey, I've been doing a bunch of track days. I do some amateur stuff. I want to go to Le Mans. Unfortunately, that's never going to happen. Yeah. That being said, I mean, I've made enough connections. I feel like I'm quick enough that, hey, if I could raise enough money, maybe I could buy a P3 ride or a GTD ride and do the Rolex 24, which is ultimately I'd like to do. That's a home race for me. I mean, you never say never. I never thought I'd be doing this. So, I mean, there's that. But, I mean, will I be at Le Mans? Probably not. I mean, would that be cool? Maybe I come into some millions in the next couple of years, and that works out. But realistic for me, as high as it ever gets, is, hey, I can make enough money, or I can make enough sponsorship friends that, yeah, if I want to go do a one-off in 24, I could do it, or 12 hours of streaming. Yeah, so that's feasible for me in a couple of years. But, yeah, I mean, if guys come in and say, yeah, I want to go do Le Mans, I mean, I don't want to kill anybody's dream, but, again, there's guys that they've been born and raised with unlimited budgets, to go out there and live that dream, and they don't even make it. So, yeah, I mean, I think you got to be realistic. But that being said, hey, if I'm doing Champ Car for the rest of my life, I'm having just as much fun. Again, I just want to drive the cars and kind of be involved in the hobby and be involved with the people. That for me, that's enough. And however far I can take this ride that I've already feel like I've gone too far already, I'll take it. So.
Awesome. So from some of the tracks that you've ran in the multiple series you've been running, what's got to be your specific favorite track?
Man, I've done most of the North American tracks. My goal in the coming years is to do more international stuff. But I mean, so it would just depend. Favorite driver's track. I mean, it's really hard to beat Sebring. I've done Laguna. Those are fun. I mean, the driver's tracks are fun. I mean, the places people want to go, there's a reason. Watkins Glen's fun. It just depends on the situation. If I'm racing and it's an IMSA thing, if I could only pick one pro race to do every year, it'd be Daytona, just because it's 40 minutes from home. And to me, that's like, again, that's the coolest thing in the world, even though the track's not that technical or even that fun.
Right.
But yeah, it just depends on what you're doing. If it's a track day, though, I mean, a place like Sebring is hard to beat. I mean, they're all good for their own reasons. So.
Gotcha. Do you have a least favorite track?
Yes. What's that place called? Pallet in Oklahoma. I was just there like 3 weekends ago. There's a small track outside of Tulsa, I think it is, and unfortunately it's been on the WRL schedule for like the past year, so we have to go. But yeah, it's an hour north of Tulsa, and like it's in the middle of nowhere, and like you turn left at an oil rig and you're at the track, and that's how you know it's there. And it's just, I don't want to say it public. I mean, it's probably not the safest track. It's not an FIA track or anything like that. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's good. I mean, it's a great time. But yeah, I mean, I don't like making the journey out there if I don't have to. So.
Oh, that's
okay.
fair.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, Allen Motor Racing Circuit in Jennings, Oklahoma, I think it is for wherever it is. But yeah, I mean, I've done some cool places, but that's not one of them. So.
That's fair. That's fair. Are you using a sim at all to get practice before you get onto these tracks?
No, and they don't work for me. I mean, I know some guys live and die by them, and there's guys that have, and I've tried. For me, I would much rather take the time and watch a video, go jump in a rental car and do the track, even if it's just 5 laps in real life. And I know some guys live and die and get really fast on sims. They don't do anything for me. That's not to sound like playing a good video game, because I'm all for playing Forza or something like that. But yeah, as far as a learning tool, it doesn't really do anything for me. I'd much rather, be out there. I don't care if it's a minivan. I mean, I'll go out there and run some laps in that just to actually experience it in real life. So.
It's funny that you mention that, because some of our listeners may know a little bit of your content by this crazy guy out here running a Crown Vic at these track days. I wonder who that might be.
Yeah. So, funny enough, we've been running IMSA, and the director of Mission Pilot Challenge is a guy named Mike Murphy. Really cool guy, and he's been running the series, and so he met us, and so he knows who I am just from the grassroots stuff. And his father was, I think, and I might be messing this up, like the chief medical director for a county in New York for like 20 years. And when he retired, they gave him his medical car, which was this Crown Vic P71. And they say, here, this is your retirement gift. So then he had it passed on to his son, Mike. And one day Mike said it just wouldn't crank. He didn't want to spend any more money into it. It has 297,000 miles on it.
Yes.
And he was like, he called me and said, hey, this car won't crank. I love the car too much. I don't want it to see it go to a junkyard. I don't want to part it out. I know if you buy it, you'll do something cool with it. Make me an offer. So I paid him $1,000. I drove down to the speedway, trailered it back, got it back to the shop. We plugged in the fuel pump, cranked right up, and I immediately took it to Daytona and did the track day with it. So I've had it at Daytona, I've had it at Sebring, multiple times at Road Atlanta, I've had it at the firm, and I swear to God, I haven't even changed the oil on this car yet. I probably ought to now that I'm thinking about it. I did put a set of pads on it, and I'm waiting to have an issue with it. And I can't seem to kill this car. And then it just got so crazy. I was going to Sebring to track it, but I also wanted to bring my Miata. So I took it to the local tow hitch shop, had him put a hitch on it. So then I was able to tow my Miata with it, and I tracked them both at Sebring. So super versatile car. If you guys are looking for a fun track car, the P71 Crown Vic, any of the Panther platforms are like wildly durable cars. So.
That reminds me, I remember seeing you post when you towed your Miata with your Crown Vic. You towed your
yeah.
track car with your other track car. That is just
It was great. Yeah, it was wonderful. And I tell you,
brilliant.
that car it handles surprisingly well. Like, I mean, again, it's not a GT3 or anything like that, but you can put it into a slide and it'll hold a slide all day long, and it's fine. I mean, it really, I enjoy bringing it because on Friday before the races, like usually there's a practice session for like a DE, and I can take all the crew guys out. We can see how long of a drift we can link, and it's a good time. It's been one of it's probably the best $1,000 I ever spent. And as far as like a content perspective, I know guys that bought like full out race cars that don't get near as much attention as I do with this $1,000 car. So no, I'll keep it. It'd be hard for me to get rid of it. And the coolest thing is, I don't know if it's legal, but it still has light, sirens, intercom in it. And so I own the title. I'm the only one that's been black flagged, from my understanding, at Daytona, Sebring, and Road Atlanta for going lights and sirens in the racetrack. So I want to see how many more tracks I can get that record at. But no, it's been a fun car. Hey, I mean, you can track anything. People won't believe it, but you can really track anything. So.
Oh, that's great. Oh, I can't wait to see this Crown Vic. I want to see this Crown Vic in person. The next time you're at Sebring or something like that, let me know, because I will come out to watch a boat go around Sebring.
It's funny. I drive the car like every other day, and so like I travel a lot because I'm here in Jackson and the shops in Atlanta, and like I would just drive this car as a commuter, and it's great. You can do like 100 down the highway, no one messes with you, no one gets in the lane to get you. So, and it's got all the antennas still on it. So like if you look at it, and you guys are in Florida, so. You know how you donate $25 and you get the sheriff's decal or the sheriff's plate? So I've got this sheriff's plate. It has a big star on it. So from about 20 feet away, it looks like a sheriff's car. It's the best thing I ever bought. I'm telling you, it's fantastic. So, no, great track car, and most people know it when they see it. So.
That's just hilarious. I just imagine being the other driver on the road. Is that a cop? Is that a cop? I can't tell. Oh, it's just Gino in his track car. It's okay.
Exactly.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. So do you have any drivers that you look up to? Like, who's your favorite driver? Like, the Idol, the Mary Andretti's, the Nick Tandy's, whoever it may be.
Yeah, so it always shocks people because of kind of the path I'm on. But I grew up a huge NASCAR fan. I was in the South in Florida, so huge Jeff Gordon fan. Just really seriously, he was my guy. I will never forget. I was at Daytona when he rode the Rolex 24, and he was in the Cadillac DPI in the rain. How is he doing that? There's no way he's, I've been knowing how, and by then I was already racing kind of amateur and champ car and stuff. And so you can kind of relate. I've raced there, and so it's kind of the same thing. But I was like, man, how could he get out of a stock car a year ago and get into that? And if you look, I mean, real race fans, you look at the lap, he was like right on. With the Taylors and everything like that, his lap times, it was a little off, but I mean, it was wild. So I grew up a big Jeff fan, and then, I mean, just kind of nowadays, huge Ben Keating fan. I mean, here's a guy that kind of, he did it the right way. He made some money for himself, and now he just races everything, So there's two ways to make it in racing. Either you're going to go out like he did, have some success, and a little later in life go out there and do what you want to do, or you're going to try and grind it out as a kid and try to get a ride, So, and I like the way he did it. Now he just races everything. I mean, I've seen him at a champ car race. It's awesome. So. Really?
He's racing champ? Oh, that's freaking cool. I'm glad you brought up Ben Keating, because he's one of my favorite drivers in the paddock now. I mean, he's exactly like you said. He races literally everything. I watch him. He raced, what was it, Bahrain in the FIA WEC. With the Seaman liveried Aston, right? Do you know about that Aston?
Yeah, I do. I remember that. He's been he likes to do these double cars in one race thing. Which more power to him, So and the thing that people don't realize is, I mean, granted, he's a gentleman driver, but I mean, he's done it so much, and he's I'm sure he's paid for some coaching that he's actually like really quick now. So again, there's. I think that's like the coolest story that, that here's a guy who's had some success in life, and this is what he's chosen to spend it on. And I'm all about it. He should have won them all, but, we're not going to get too political. So,
yeah, we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
All right. That's fair. So now I've got a question for you as a NASCAR fan.
Okay.
Couple of questions, actually. One, would you rather watch a NASCAR road race or current Formula One?
road race any day. Yeah, I mean, again,
Yes.
that's just
There it is.
it's right now. I mean, we could almost guess who's going to win an F1 race, and the racing's got a little better the championship battle. I mean, I'll give it that,
A
but
little bit.
I mean, it's just almost so my problem as a race car guy, and that it's almost F1's gotten so unrelatable. Um, just the speeds.
Yes.
It's a little tough versus. I mean, where the NASCAR stuff now. I mean, I like where they're going with the next gen car, but I don't know. I mean, again, and obviously F1 is going to get a much bigger footprint now in the states. But no, I mean, I think just from the guys, from the fan perspective, that's so much more relatable to watch a NASCAR race. Especially again, I do this, and I've done some. I have no idea. I can't even relate to what it'd be to be in an F1 car. But
Yeah.
again, everyone kind of guessed what it would be like in a NASCAR. So.
It's funny you mentioned that new next-gen NASCAR because that actually segues into my other kind of half NASCAR question. What are your thoughts about this new kind of carbon fiber, single lug NASCAR setup that seems to be confusing a lot of the pit crews?
So, again, it's man, that's a tough one. So I'm kind of torn on this every day because as a NASCAR fan,
I think I know where you're about to go with this.
yeah, I mean, it's twofold. I mean, NASCAR should be 5 on, 5 off. I mean, the pit crew should be involved. Again, a common issue nowadays that, again, is striking even local track day guys I'm with every day. Again, people are forgetting how to drive manuals. So, I mean, I don't know how I feel about the sequential. It's almost like good and bad. I think NASCAR, when they bought IMSA, they said, man, a lot of this stuff's working for them. So they're trying to bring a lot of that into it. And, again, I'm not necessarily against it, but I think it kind of takes some of that purity out of the NASCAR, 4-speed V8, kind of what it's always been. So I have some concerns about what it's going to do to, again, I mean, NASCAR, there are certain things that they should update. I don't know if that was one of them. I think it's going to be great for the fans. I mean, the attendance struggles are real and everything like that. But I don't know. I think they're trying to do a little bit too much what IMSA's doing and make these more sports cars than they were stock cars. So I'm really torn on it. But again, whatever advances motorsport in the States, I'm all about. But I don't know. I'm really torn on the whole thing. So.
Yeah, that's kind of the same way we both feel. Yeah, they're cool. Yep, they're interesting. There's a lot of cool tech going into them. There's a lot more aero. There's a lot more everything. But are they still NASCARs?
Yeah, so the only thing I'll tell you about, I mean, and really as a race fan, probably the best racing in the world outside of maybe some of the WE stuff is V8 supercars. And essentially, this is what they're almost making V8 supercars for the States. I mean, you look at the way the cars are. You're talking about sequential V8, cars. You're talking a schedule now that's, what is it, a quarter road courses almost. So slowly they're kind of making this more and more this leap. And you go to Australia and there's no attendance issues. They live and die by it. So I mean, if it does what they did for that, again, I can get behind it. I mean. Really, I'm a huge track day guy. That's kind of hard for me. And there's no doubt in my mind when you see more and more NASCAR races on road courses, it's bringing people into that community because, hey, I can take my Mustang and go run Mid Ohio this weekend at a track day. So, again, from that part of it, I like what they're doing. I think it's going to bring more people into it. But yeah, I mean, if you look at the racing that they have, in V8 supercars and stuff like that, if it's more like that, that's going to be okay too. And it's almost like that's more or less what we're making with these cars. So.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that definitely just completely changed my perspective on them. I never drew that parallel of this is kind of turning into the US's version of the Aussie V8 supercars because every car enthusiast and racing guy in the world loves the V8 supercars because they're just a hoot to watch.
Yeah, so hopefully that's what. I mean, again, when you think about it, sequential boxes, big V8s. I mean, again, it's more or less the same ingredients. And I don't know. I mean, you figure in the United States we have some incredible road courses, and this car is going to be way more suitable. Everyone talks about like Dakota Rain Race. Well, yeah, I mean, everyone makes fun of them, but these cars were never really made for that. I mean, again, everyone likes the armchair quarterback and say, hey, they say that was the most dangerous thing. But yeah, you're talking 7 horsepower cars that were never meant to run in the rain. These cars, I think, will be more suitable for it. And yeah, I mean, you might be able to see much better road racing, here in the States because of it. So.
That's fair. That's fair. I like your perspective on it for sure. I do like your perspective on it.
All right, Gino.
And by
So
the way,
I hand you.
I would like to drive one of those cars if I ever get the opportunity. So
All right. So any NASCAR drivers or teams that are listening, hit up Gino. He's
yeah,
your man.
just give me a couple laps. That's all I need. I'll be happy. So.
Love it. I would love to see you absolutely tear through with one of those, tear through Daytona or somewhere, Daytona Road Course or COTA or wherever, in one of those new next-gen NASCARs.
Well, you never know.
Maybe we'll have to race it against the Crown Vic.
That's like a NASCAR, really, when you think about it. So.
Yep.
Pretty much.
All right, Gino. I hand you a blank check. You can buy any car in the world. You can track it. You can do whatever you want with it. What is it?
You're allowed a couple of cars, I suppose.
So street car, track car. Not many people know a lot about it. There's a car called Bentley Continental Speed, which is the W12, kind of like the M car version of the Bentley Continental. I think that would be cool to have as a track car, just because no one would ever track it, and it'd be relatively fast. So yeah, I'd probably pick that. And as far as race car stuff, man, again, that's a tough one to answer. I really starting to have a liking towards newer prototypes, because you can actually go buy a prototype now. You can get them for $200,000. So it's almost like a feasible car you can go buy. So yeah, street car, track car, I'd have a Continental Speed, just because it'd be so crazy to go buy GT3s and things with it. And then track car, I think it'd be hard just for value for the money to beat getting an LMP3 Ligier or something like that. So.
That's awesome.
Wow, that is a diverse selection, and I actually love it. Now, you said that you did drive. It was an LMP3, wasn't it?
Yeah, so up in Atlanta, there's a team called Zen Racing, and they bought a Ginetta G57 LMP3 car just to go break NASA time trials, if I'm not mistaken. So they this car has a bunch of records in NASA time trials. So, I mean, and they wouldn't mind me saying it, but, it's a group of wealthy guys. They imported this car and it's probably about a 4 or 5 year old LMP3 car now, so it's out of spec. But back then it was X-Track. They put a V8 in it. So I was doing a track day at Barber one day, and the owner, I kind of have a little bit of notoriety in the track day community for all the wrong reasons. But he was there. He was showing me the car. And I'm just walking around this car with him, and all of a sudden he's like, grab your helmet. And I'm pretty certain at this point he's going to let me take a picture sitting in it with my helmet on, and that'd be really cool. Puts my helmet on. He starts really rattling off. You hit this, don't hit this. And whatever you do, don't hit any curbs, shuts the clamp. And it's like, okay. I'm like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, go now. The session's about to start. So literally I'm driving an LMP3 car in a pair of Converses, my jeans, and my favorite, NASCAR T-shirt out of Barber's. So experienced that, and yes, I've gotten to drive one of those. Honestly, if it were my choice to race a car, I would not pick prototype cars. I'd much rather be in GT cars. I didn't like the seating position of it, or a lot of things about it. If I spent more time in it, it'd be cool. But if somebody came to me right now and said, hey, here's a ride in the Rolex 24, would you rather have an LMP3 car or a GT car? I'd much rather be in the GT car, just because I'm not comfortable with that yet. But yeah, it was a very strange experience to get to drive a car like that. So
I could imagine that car is worthless until you get going fast enough where the arrow does anything.
So yeah, and that was part of my 30-second here go have fun brief was I like to hit curbs a lot. That's just what I do.
You're a GT car driver. Yeah. That's what you're supposed to do. That's the whole point of it.
And he was like, hey, if you hit the curbs and the air goes underneath the car, you're gonna have a big problem. And so I didn't even think about that. When you watch prototype cars go around, they don't really hit curbs because you got to keep the air over these cars. So granted, I never drove this car fast enough to really do it, but I do remember I was at a track day, and I probably did a 15-20-minute session in this car, and I'm catching Z06s like it's absolutely nothing. And I knew who was in the cars, and these are cars that, around Barber are really fast. And I had just gotten out of my Mazda 2, and so I drove this 80 horsepower hatchback, and now I'm in an LMP3 car that I have no business driving. Really, and there's so much buttons in this, and there's so much going on. All I know is brake, gas, right paddle, left hand. That's like all I know how to do in this. I probably don't even know how to get out of the car, if I'm honest. So, yeah, it was pretty crazy. But yeah, and this was a couple years, probably 3 years ago, 2 years ago. This is before I started kind of doing some more serious race car stuff. But yeah, that was kind of a real trial by fire. And here's a $250,000 Ginetta, go have fun. So
As you jump out of your Mazda.
yeah, no, it was cool. Yeah, so I'll never forget that day. There's pictures and video of it, and yeah, it was just crazy. And to my knowledge, I'm one of the only few that ever driven that car, and I don't know why. I'm friends with the owner of it, and as a rule, I don't ask people to drive their cars. So like people always ask, man, you must be asking all these people to drive their cars. Unless something's offered to me, I'll never ever ask unless it's something like I really know. But when he offered that, it was almost, and his explanation was, hey, somebody did something this for me years ago, and I never forgot it. I'm going to do this for you now, essentially. And yeah, I mean, it kind of changed my perspective on that. And, you know, and so now whenever, you know, again, people offer me just some of the wildest stuff. And when somebody, and I tell us the track day guys, when somebody says, hey, take my car out, that's like the biggest compliment they can give you, because everyone's protective of their cars. You know, when someone trusts you to go take their car out there, that's like a pretty huge deal. So, you know, again, as I've been more and more involved in this community, the more and more that happens is you know, again, I don't care if it's a Mazda Protege or, you know, a Super Trofeo Huracan. If somebody offers you their car out there, I mean, be very respectful, because that means that they understand that you're not going to go out there and do something stupid. So,
yeah, that's true. That is such a massive compliment. Just, yeah, that's just recognition. Just a big recognition, a trust factor there. That's for sure. So I can dig it. The Bentley Continental Speed, and then the P3. So I know you mentioned track days. How many track days have you done?
Well, I've done 50 this year, more or less. Okay. But so I'm working on this streak. I want to do 52 weeks straight, weekend straight at a track day, and I'm about there. So.
Did you say 50 already?
Yeah, so I spent, Petit, I'm a little dumb. So I did Petit Friday, did the race there. I went to work Saturday, and then Sunday I drove down to PBIR and did an event, a track day there. So
wow.
But yeah, so I'm working on the street. So I'm at 50 weekends in a row that I've spent some time on a racetrack. And so yeah, ever since COTA, WRL ended last year when the season ended, every single weekend since then, I spent some time on a racetrack. I mean, total, I don't know. It's got to be, I mean, I used to do 40 events a year in the Mazda, so I'm sure it's in the hundreds. It's got to be in the hundreds. So.
Damn.
Wow.
Damn.
That is a lot of track days. That's awesome. Cool. I don't really have too much. Do you got anything else, Michael?
No, I got to be honest. That's pretty much all I've got for you, Gino. Where can people find you?
Yeah, I mean, I spend some time on Instagram, just at Gino Manly's my tag. So I try to put whatever I'm doing on there, have a little bit of fun of what we're driving or what we're doing. And yeah, you can find me there and in person. I'm a member of a group in Atlanta called Jay's Track Days, and so I do some instructions, some classroom stuff for them. So I'm usually at all their events. So if you guys from the Southeast come by and see us there, and yeah, you can visit me on there, and I'm always available there. So.
Awesome. Well, Gino, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. Look forward to watching you climb the ranks and, you know, maybe get a seat in the Rolex 24.
You never know.
Thanks again for coming on, Gino.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thanks again, Gino, for coming on. That was great to have you. Look forward to watching you drive your way through the series. So let's transition back into some local stuff that we have going on, like Cars and Coffee and a little drive that we had beforehand.
We did. We had a little drive. You texted me on Friday night. You said, hey, you want to go for a little drive on Saturday morning before our Cars and Coffee? Yeah, why not? So I showed up, and oh boy, we had an eclectic group of cars, and we were having some fun.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a sunrise drive before Cars and Coffee out east where there's no one around. Found the very few corners that we have here in this lovely state of Florida. There's a joke that the tail of the dragon is 318 curves and 11 miles, and the entire state of Florida is 11 curves and 318 miles.
Yeah.
So we found pretty much all 11 of those curves in the entire state. So we had a great little group outing there. We had me and my little Volkswagen GLI, you in the BRZ. We had a friend of mine come out with his C6 Z06, so a big V8 rumbling around. We had another big V8 with a Mercedes E63 AMG. We had we had a lot of big engines out there. We also had an Audi S4 come out. Another good buddy of mine. He brought his Audi S4. That supercharger just screams. It's great. And then we had the loudest Cayman that has ever been created in the history of the world.
But it sounded awesome.
It was great. Oh my God, it's so good. Oh, it's such a good noise. I was just urging him to go past me every time I could so that he could put his foot down and hear that flat six just scream.
Yep.
Oh,
and he did it proper because
it.
under the overpass, he just stood right in it. And that's exactly what you do when you go through a tunnel or an overpass.
Yeah, we got to that bridge, underneath the bridge, and you could hear him drop down about 2 or 3 gears and just, it was just, fantastic. Now, I got to admit, I am proud of my little Volkswagen. It was pushing pace out there.
I got to admit, I was the slowest car out there. By a long shot, too.
It was funny. My friend with the Corvette Z06, he goes, "So you gonna keep up out there?" I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll keep up." So I actually led, and I actually left the Z06 coming out of a couple of the corners. I was like, "All right, let's go. Let's go, Volkswagen." Yeah, my little front-wheel drive Volkswagen. You know what to do here.
Yeah, we were pushing
car.
it into some corners. We were having a ball. It was out by kind of in the middle of nowhere, which was pretty awesome. And there was a nice sunrise going as well. But near the end of it, my brakes were starting to fade, and I could feel that.
Oh, see, I didn't feel any brake fade yet. There was one last corner that I went into a little hot, and it still stopped very nicely. It was great. I was very happy with the performance of my little Volkswagen. So Volkswagen, you've built a great car.
Yeah, overall, it was a lot of fun. But that did lead us right into our local Cars and Coffee, which was pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it did. It did. So let's talk about that Cars and Coffee for a second,
Let's do
shall we? So it was a JDM Legends theme of Cars and Coffee. Did any of your car spots of the week come from this JDM Legends Cars and Coffee?
Indeed, they did. There were a whole ton of JDM cars, and they had parked them near the front of the whole event there. And if you're watching on YouTube, we're going to check out a couple of the photos I took. There was Supra row right when you turned in. I think there were 5 Supras directly in a row.
Yeah, and these are all proper Supras, Mark IV Supras. So this is 2JZ Alley.
It was super cool to see. But one, I would say that the car spot of the week specifically probably goes to this R32 GTR. Huge fan of.
Ooh, that's good.
And I believe it's also right-hand drive.
Good.
As well it should be.
It is. And the garage, the shop that built that, RB Power Garage, quick shout out to them. They build some of the most insane Skyline GTRs ever. They're great. I followed their builds. They had a big presence out there. A lot of the GTRs were built by RB Power Garage out there. Woo!
Super cool, super clean GTRs, and they had a couple of them there. And you can see the red one backed up to it was also another clean, I'm sure an absolute monster with the turbo on it too. Yeah.
It is.
So a runner-up, though, for my car spot of the week is this very, very clean Nissan 300ZX.
Ooh. Yeah, I like a very nicely, properly well-sorted 300ZX. And I think that's got the Targa top, too, doesn't it?
It does indeed have the Targa top.
Yes, that's perfect. Yeah. So that is a very nicely spec'd 300ZX. I love a good spec 300Z. And they make a pretty good noise,
they do.
Too.
And that was one of those cars that we talked about the engineering before, and it is just crazy what they did back in the day for the technology that they had for that car. We're talking rear steering, like crazy bi-turbo stuff. It was really cool to see in that kind of car. But there was also some fairly controversial stuff at Cars and Coffee.
Ooh.
Now, I know that this
I do recall this.
Made you question a couple things.
It did. So for those watching on YouTube and for those listening, we're looking at a Miami Blue 718 GT4 by Porsche. So that's a Cayman GT4. So there's something missing from this car that shouldn't be missing.
Yeah, you immediately spotted that there was no rear wing to this car, but I believe that comes stock.
Yeah, this car comes stock with a proper rear wing. This car looks kind of weird without the wing.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure. It's almost like they made their own GT4 Touring, like how Porsche does the GT3 Touring. It's almost like they tried to make their own GT4 Touring. And
I think that's...
I don't know how I feel about
that's
this.
what they were getting at. I did go to the back of this car, and indeed the places where the wing brackets were covered up by a piece of plastic. So they had removed the wing. It was there at one point. The interesting thing about that is I bet you that this car would be fairly scary to drive at speed because that's a lot of downforce that you're missing on that.
Yeah, that is a rear-wheel drive, so a mid-engined rear-wheel drive car that now has removed literally almost all of the downforce that is provided by that. All of the downforce provided by that wing. The only downforce this now has is from the rear diffuser, which is a good-sized diffuser, but it's not... It can't compensate for the lack of wing.
It still does look clean. I will give it that. And if you're going for the touring look, and if you're just going to tour this car at reasonable speeds, I can kind of see the appeal.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good look, but don't take the wing off your GT4. I honestly, it's got to be frightening to death to drive that thing over 65 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's what Not sure why you would do it, other than the aesthetics, and you're not going to drive it particularly fast.
Yeah, if you're going to do that, you need to do a ton more other dive planes and all sorts of other mumbo-jumbo to make that not just literally fly away and take flight.
Yes. Now, does this disrespect the brand?
Does it disrespect the brand? No. Does it disrespect the model? Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Because if you're going to have a Cayman, then have a regular Cayman without a wing. But if you're getting a GT4 of a Cayman, then it's supposed to have a wing. That's the whole point of a GT4, right? If you're getting a GT4, you're getting it because it's a GT4 and not a regular Cayman.
Yeah. I get that. Yeah. An interesting one with some controversy.
It is
now,
interesting.
do you want to talk about a lot of controversy? Oh, do I have the car for
let's
you?
Talk about a lot of controversy. Okay, hit me.
Oh,
my God.
Could you please explain to the people what's happening here?
A travesty is what is happening in front of our eyes. So for those of you listening, you can't see what we're looking at, but dear Lord, this is horrible. It is a Pontiac Solstice with Lamborghini doors and a hood open, and it's not good.
No.
It's just bad.
Yeah, it's like...
And it's
red.
red.
And it's, I think, bone stock other than all of the...
Wheels, maybe?
Yeah, okay, you're right, wheels. But other than the doors doing the Lamborghini thing, kind of up in the air, and the hood opening from the wrong way forward, why? Why would you do that to a Solstice?
I don't know, because you immediately said, that's a Slowstis. You immediately recognized what it was. It actually took me a second to figure out what the hell I was looking at, because it's just so Transformers Optimus Prime kind of road Transformers assemble.
I happened to spot the badge right behind the front wheel, and that was how I knew. When I was looking at the car head on, I couldn't tell what it was.
It's not good.
I don't. These cars are very well known for being very heavy and not particularly well suited in the power department. And I don't know why you would put these kind of doors or hood on this car. Weird.
Very.
So, sticking to the controversy, we have another hot take for you.
Okay. Ooh.
Tell the people what we have here.
We have something very ugly. We have a Ferrari California that is red with a tan interior, but it's not just regular red. It's matte red. I don't like that.
I don't like it, but it's not as bad as the Slowstis.
So that's what the owner of the Slowstus would do to the Ferrari if they got the Ferrari.
You're right.
So when the owner of the Slowstus gets very successful in life, that's what they're going to do to the Ferrari. And I'm sure they'll probably put Lamborghini doors on that one too.
This Ferrari is for rent, which, ooh.
Great.
Ooh.
Yeah, let's rent that.
Ooh.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
There was a bunch of good stuff out there, but there was some very entertaining, controversial stuff as well.
There was one more that I want to chat about. I don't think you have a picture of this, but there was a Corvette of the many Corvettes. Oh, this was maybe the worst spec that I've ever seen on a Corvette ever in my entire life.
I think I know what you're about to say, and I think I have a picture of it. But you explain what it is.
So it is a bright yellow Corvette C8, so a new Corvette convertible. Bright yellow. And this is like as highlighter yellow as you can get. With black racing stripes with a red pinstripe outline around the racing stripes. With black and red accents on the calipers, on the bumper. And then where this goes really, really, really wrong is the fact that they did a tan, black, and red interior on this. Oh my God, it's so bad. It's so bad.
There's some questionable taste.
Now, I happen to kind of have an idea and a hunch or an inkling. Oh my God, stop looking at pictures of it. It's horrible. It's so bad. It's just vomit city. So I happen to have an inkling or a hunch that while we were there absolutely shitting on the spec of this Corvette, I think that's the owner of it just behind it.
Oh, well. You brought it to a car show.
And I think he probably heard us shitting on it because it was not a good spec. I mean,
yeah.
Who goes to a dealer and says, yes, I would like yellow, black, and red on tan?
Yeah, I don't. No. It's a weird spec. It's a really weird spec. If it was just the black and yellow, that's fine. The red kind of is interesting. But the beige in the interior is just all over the place.
That's just bad. That's just not good.
Yeah.
That's just not good.
Yeah. Did you happen to have a car spot of the week while you were there?
I did. So a couple things that stuck out to me was there was a couple of different Mazda RX-7s.
Yes.
So the FD body style. There was a red one and a silver one that really peeked out to me. And these two were both absolute, just pure mental crazy machines. The red one pulled in, and it was screaming like a rotary was, right? We were walking. We were like, oh, my God, listen to that thing. It sounds like it's going to eat your children. It was great. This red FD backed into a parking spot with a turbo that could swallow my face. It was fantastic. But my favorite RX-7 there was a silver one that had arrow on arrow on arrow on arrow. It was, yo, dog, I heard you like wings. So we put wings on your wings so you could fly with wings, bro. Like, it was sick, though, but it wasn't like tacky wings. It was like proper, like it looked like a time attack ready FD RX-7. Yeah. It was great. That was my favorite RX-7 that was there. There was a lot of Mark IV Supras that we talked about. Those were cool to see. I'm not going to call it my spot of the week, but very, very interesting to see them. There's a couple of heavily modified ones. I think there was even a stock one there. Just really good stuff. But my spot of the week does come from Cars and Coffee. And this is, you already know I'm a Porsche guy, so it's going to be a Porsche. But as we were wandering through the aisles, I happened to spot some just straight up Porsche porn. There is a very nicely, tastefully modified 930 Turbo. Oh, it was so good. It was black, and it was just so, so, so good. It had retrofitted Ren 11 headlights. It had 3-piece CCW wheels. It was just so very, very nicely modified. That is not it, Eric. No, unfortunately, that's not quite it. That's just a Targa that roams around a lot. This was just a very nicely spec'd black 930 turbo that was to die for, in my opinion. It was very, 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 very good.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have
So
a
it
photo
was-
of it. But
no. But that is my spot of the week, was this beautifully, tastefully modified 930 turbo out at Cars and Coffee.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, there's a ton to see out there, and always glad to go out there and see the diversity of the cars. As you can see in the photos, there's kind of everything and anything, which is why we like it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good Cars and Coffee. It's one of the best ones we've got around, and it's always fun to get people together for a drive beforehand. So for the next one, let me know if anyone wants to join, and we may get another one going.
Indeed. So we should start wrapping it up. We're getting a little long on time. We had an interview as well.
Yep.
Do you have, and I wish they would have.
I do. So this has actually surprisingly been a little bit of a Mazda-heavy episode, hasn't it? Mazda winning DPI, the Mazda RX-7s at Cars and Coffee. There's just been a lot of Mazda stuff. So my I wish they would have also goes into the bucket of Mazda.
Okay.
I wish Mazda would do another Mazda Speed 3 and a Mazda Speed 6.
Ooh, do I ever wish for that. Man.
God, so bad. I love the Speed 3 and the Speed 6.
Yeah. I got to drive a Speed 3, and that was the first, I believe it was one of the first turbo cars I had ever driven. But the torque curve on that car was an absolute cliff. It was zero torque until you get to 2,500 RPM, in which case you get 100% of the torque now, right now, immediately.
Yeah. I had a buddy a while ago that had a Mazda Speed 3. His name is Will. So, Will, if you're listening, I remember still riding in your Speed 3. And I remember the same kind of thing. It's just this mountain of torque that comes all in one giant lump. And just, boom, there it is.
Yeah, clearly that car had way too big of a turbo for the engine that it had. And that's why you got the mountain of torque. It couldn't actually ramp into the torque curve. It was just, here it is right now. And I think that that's what made the character of that car, too. And it was a little hatchback. You could actually fit reasonable things inside of it. Like, I'm sure a hockey bag would fit in there. And you could take the kids out and about. It
probably a bike in the back of it.
It was surprisingly quick for how kind of clunky and big it felt to drive. But it's a Mazda. Like, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I wish Mazda would do another Speed 3 and a Speed 6. I love the Speed 6. I never got to drive one, but that Speed 6 was like that was like a race car killer, because people would look at it like it's a Mazda 6. Who cares? And then all of a sudden they realize it's all-wheel drive with like 300 plus horsepower, and it's like, oh my God, that thing's a monster.
Yeah, I do wish that they'd come back with one of those.
Yeah, so that's my I wish they would have. I wish Mazda would do another Mazda Speed 3 and a Mazda Speed 6.
That's good. That's a good one.
I like to think so.
I do.
You have one?
I believe that it was back in like 2008. Nissan came out with some press headlines that said, "We have made paint that will heal itself." And everybody was like, what? What are you talking about? And then a couple years later, they kind of just put that press off to the side and never really talked about it again. So I wish that they had actually sorted out self-healing paint. Now, the tech that they were using here was like a weird combination of like the clear coat trying to fill in the gap where the paint had been scratched or something like that. But I've heard that there are companies out there that are working on really like microscopic tiny little bubbles and like patches of paint, so that if you were to scratch your own paint, those would burst and they would go fill the gap that you had scratched, which is actually a really cool concept. And I've seen it used on like plastic, where you can, how you can dent some plastic and heat it up and it'll pop back to its original form. Like that kind of technology. I wish that some manufacturer could actually sort that out, or somebody could sort out self-healing paint, so that when you do get a scratch or a clear coat nick or something like that, it could just kind of even out and actually heal itself.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. I wish they would have, because my car it's a daily driver. It's got scratches, right? It's been to the grocery store, and people suck as humans. So it's got a ding here or there. It's got a scratch here or there. Yeah, I wish that if some jackwagon walked by with their shopping cart, I wouldn't have to come and destroy their whole life because of it. And my paint would just fix itself.
If you do daily drive your car, it is bound to get scratched and nicked and dinged. That's just what happens. That is life.
Yeah. Yep. That is life. That just is life.
I think that's all I got, bud.
All right. So, as I was going to ask you if you got anything else, and I think I don't have anything else, so I think that's going to wrap us up. Perfect. So that's going to wrap up episode 38. Thank you all so much for listening. Thanks for coming on, Gino. Make sure you leave us a 5-star rating and drop a review or a comment on our Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Please make sure you are also following us on social. So subscribe to our YouTube channel at We Are Auto, where you can also watch the podcast, as well as follow us on Instagram at We Are Auto _. Facebook is We Are Auto. TikTok is We Are Auto. Also, if you could, send us your I Wish They Would Haves or any other auto-related news that you'd like to see us chat about. And if you do leave us a review, we may even chat about it on air. So again, thanks everyone for watching and listening, and we will catch you guys on the next one.
Peace.